Hello again, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Logan Davis with the Higher Education Center. I am the gambling education specialist. If that sounds new to you, that is because it is. I began this role in February, transitioned over from being the outreach and engagement manager. So super excited to step into this new role and adventure with the center. So thanks for being with us today for our webinar, High Risk Gambling Among College Students, Risk, Realities, and Responses. We love some alliteration around here. So we're excited to have Jenna Hotaling with the National Council on Problem Gambling. So we have a few housekeeping items before we begin. Just a few Zoom housekeeping pieces. If you're having any issues with your audio, first, try to take care of that and do some troubleshooting in the bottom left-hand corner in the audio settings button. And so try to do it there. If you still are having issues, please let us know and we will try to help you in any way that we can. We will be accepting questions for our presenter today. Please try to use the Q&A feature for any questions you would like our presenter to answer. So that way we can make sure we are able to get them to her. So that is the Zoom pieces. Do want to just mention the Higher Education Center is a membership center. And so would encourage everyone to learn more about our membership levels. While this is not my full-time job anymore, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. You're happy to learn more about our membership levels at the Higher Ed Center's website, heccaod.osu.edu. And one of the benefits of being a member is you get access that's included in the membership to our learning collaboratives. We do two a year. And so the next one is coming up on April the 16th. That is a most of the day event. And that is taking place April the 16th from 11 to 4. We have a fantastic lineup. Encourage you to visit our website to learn more there. We also have some other events coming up. So we have another webinar coming up April the 2nd around cannabis and peer education from Dylan Precourt and Caitlin Burkhart out of George Washington. And then we have a water cooler chat on prediction markets that's happening April the 14th from 2 to 3 p.m. So now it is my honor to introduce Jenna Hotaling from NCPG. She is the training manager there. And in her role, she develops, manages, and delivers training programs designed to support professionals and communities impacted by problem gambling harms. Part of her work also includes evaluating the effectiveness of training programs through assessments, feedback, and performance metrics. Known for her strong interpersonal skills, over the last 30 minutes, I can attest to those, an engaging sense of humor. Jenna is effective in building and sustaining meaningful stakeholder relationships. Her past professional endeavors have led her to experiences in nonprofit, addiction prevention, problem gambling education, and project management. Jenna holds a Bachelor of Science degree in public health and is a certified health education specialist. Excuse me. Jenna, thank you so much for being with us. It is my pleasure to hand it over to you at this time.
Awesome. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, team in the background, for all your support. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Heads up, this is the very first Canva presentation I have put together for this purpose. So I'm really excited to be able to offer this training to all of you. So like Logan mentioned, I am the training manager at the National Council on Problem Gambling. I've been in this role since last August. So although I am fresh at National, I've had some experience with problem gambling, specifically in New York State with their council. So today I'm going to be going through problem gambling among college students, risks, realities, and responses. So I'm sure as you have seen with National, just want to put in a quick plug about who we are. We are the only national nonprofit organization that seeks to mitigate gambling-related harm. The organization works to improve health and wellness by reducing personal, social, and economic costs of problem gambling. And we are neutral on legalized gambling. And as you know, legalized gambling has really taken off in the past few years, especially in connection with technology and AI. So I'm excited to talk through that process today. Just as a reminder, I'm sure we all know that March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Just some quick statistics from our end for you. About 2.5 million US adults are estimated to meet the criteria for a severe gambling problem in a given year. And that is just the specific individual that's impacted. So you can imagine that the impact triples and quadruples when talking about people, loved ones, family members, coworkers. Everyone can be affected by this. It's also estimated that about $14 billion is the cost of social or of problem gambling with the social costs of that. So quite significant. But as we go through the presentation, we'll be talking about sports betting a little bit and prediction markets and how that harnesses a lot of funds in real time. And then, of course, 5 to 8 million US adults are considered to have a mild or moderate gambling problem. So not everyone experiences the severe extreme side of things, but people can be impacted in different ways. And we'll go through some of those warning signs as well. Just a quick note, I'm sure many of you know about our annual conference. It's coming up this July. So just wanted to put in a quick save the date for you. Our location is in beautiful Nashville. And I actually just went this past December for a staff retreat, and I can say that the location, it's a beautiful spot. It's very interconnected to the local scene. So we hope to see you there. All right, so we'll go through our learning objectives for the session today. By the end of this session, my hope is to get everyone to be on the same page as we define problem gambling and how it impacts the young adult population. I also would like to go through the identification of at least 3 risk factors for problem gambling, as well as identifying at least one way to address problem gambling on your college campus. Now, we have many slides that will address this in many ways, so I can guarantee you you'll at least have one takeaway for this. So I'm excited to go through this with you. All right, so we'll go ahead and we will start from the basics. What's problem gambling? At this point, I'd love for you to use the chat function if you feel comfortable with defining specifically from your perspective what problem gambling is. Let's define it. All right, they're coming in. Loss of control over betting, gambling. Gambling that is having a significant negative impact on an individual's life, yet they are not able to stop. Gambling or spending money to the point of it negatively affecting your life. Betting is a way that negatively affects your social, financial, physical, or emotional well-being. Consumes thoughts. Gambling that is deviant from the norm, dangerous to self or others, leads to dysfunction and distress. The use of funds meant for food and other necessities, significant impact on life. Yeah, these are all intertwined with what problem gambling is, as far as, the general gist of what problem gambling is. We define it as anytime someone's gambling negatively impacts their life. So everyone in the chat has already addressed some of those, concerns that might be happening. Risking something of value of chance event on an event. Sorry, I am just coming back from a trip, so I am very tired and jet lagged, so my apologies. Risking something of value on an event determined by chance. So yes, that is the definition of gambling. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next screen, and we'll just kind of go through what we've just seen through the chat. So problem gambling definitely impacts finances. It impacts relationships. It can trickle into work difficulties and school difficulties, as well as just being overconsumed with the action of gambling. So that lack of time for important activities or people, prioritizing gambling over other responsibilities. And that, as you go through, could lead to more extreme circumstances that leads to problem gambling and gambling disorder. So some of those warning signs that I'm sure make sense when we talk through it, but when it leads into college students, sometimes it can be hidden a little bit easier. So some of those warning signs, obviously, they overlap with emotional, behavioral, and financial. So some of those are increasing time spent on gambling, lying about gambling habits, neglecting work, school, or personal responsibilities, mood swings, anxiety, and or depression, irritability when unable to play, using gambling as an escape from personal problems, borrowing money frequently or maxing out credit cards. And sometimes I've seen college students using their funds, their school work funds, to fuel that gambling habit. Um, Sudden financial struggles without explanation. So you really tapping into funds that aren't really even there, and then kind of getting in the hole. And we've seen situations where people have really experienced rock bottom. And selling personal items to fund gambling habits. So I just wanted to put in this visual here as a dimensional approach to mental illness and gambling because it does unfortunately go hand in hand much of the time. So, we see with depression and anxiety, as I mentioned in the previous slide, but also with substance use. So as we talk about how college students are impacted by gambling problems, just something to note, something I'm sure we all know is that brains are still developing until age 25. So they're really doing those high risk behaviors and activities at this age. So when you're thinking about someone who is partaking in alcohol use or other drug use, that heightens that. I'm like Superman. I can do it all. So when substances, in addition to gambling, happen, that can really increase the risk there. So what does gambling look like with college students? So I'm going to switch over my slides to Mentimeter, and I will have this up on my other slide. Hopefully we can see that all. So you can still see the QR code as well as the menti.com number code. So I'll give this just a second. So if you have a
Jenna,
phone or would like to,
we're not seeing the QR code right now.
oh, hold on, let me see if I can fix that. Alrighty. All right, testing.
Perfect. I see the QR code.
Awesome. Sorry about that. All right, so we've got the QR code here. I'll give everyone just a few moments to log in and go ahead and, you're welcome to add one word, a phrase. I really would love to see this in, cloud format. I really love the word cloud way of being able to bring all of these ideas and observations together. And this can also be what you are seeing on your college campus. This can be general as far as, what's trending right now. Personally, I love to see, anything that's particularly connected to your college campus. But yeah, we're really getting in there. So sports betting still looks like it's the highest in there. Um, Loot boxes, sports, risky, prediction markets, call sheet, distraction, headache, parlays, isolation, gamification. Yeah, a lot of this I'm seeing is just it's really more or less the entertainment way of gambling has really skyrocketed. And it's just become so easily accessible. When you think about how people used to gamble and some of these forms of gambling were not available, it's just it's really blown up. And obviously with any increase in a high risk activity, there's the increase of harms. So I'll leave this open for just another moment. If you want, feel free to take a screenshot of this. I will also be including the slides for distribution after the PowerPoint or after the presentation. All right, awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and pivot back over to the PowerPoint. So we did see some of those in our word cloud, some of those common forms of gambling, and I just wanted to kind of go through this more with you. So, of course, a lot of people are continuously talking about prediction markets as it continues to grow, and it's a very easily accessible way for people to gamble on anything. And it's a quick and easy form, and from my understanding of it, you can bet $1 on the weather and see, what happens at the end of the day, or, any real-time event. Anyone can place a bet on anything at this point in our existence. So just something to keep in mind as well. And CPG really stresses making sure that things are federally like legal and all of those things, all of it's a very complicated predicament we have right now. But prediction markets continues to kind of lead the charge with gambling, especially with the college population. Sports betting as well, of course. I did see some things about parlays and sports betting, and this can also go beyond just regular physical sports, but esports as well. So video game competitions, I know at a lot of colleges there are, e-clubs and things like that, and they also do those brackets and competitions. So anything that, is exciting that you want to place a bet on, it's happening. I also see, depending on the college and also the culture, cards and card tournaments are very popular as well. And then, of course, college sports and athletics. I've seen some news articles about just the dangers of that, as far as the athletes are getting, called out. I can't believe, you missed that throw, or I can't believe you're doing this, and they're attacking them on social media because the person that had placed the bet was upset with that athlete for not performing the way they wanted to. So there's a lot of layers going on, and of course, we're here to also, increase the availability and accessibility of resources for people that are experiencing that, but making it a normalized conversation. And then finally, online and or in-app casino style games. So I heard a lot about social casinos that don't take, your funds. You have like points or chips, and that really kind of mimics the casino style aspect online. And if there's anything else that anyone else would like to add to this that you're seeing on your college campus, I encourage you to add that to the chat. I do see someone put something in about Bitcoin and Robinhood. That is a good point. So, of course, things like this with Robinhood, they're investment platforms, but they can also be used for gambling as well. All right, so I wanted to briefly introduce the Engage survey that NCPG is in partnership with and conducts every few years. So the last Engage survey was taken in April of 2024. So I wanted to share some of those statistics from this survey with you. Some of the questions on this survey include gambling participation, emphasis on sports betting and fantasy sports betting, problematic behavior, positive play, beliefs and opinions about problem gambling. And most questions remain the same on both surveys, so we can, see over time how this changes and is impacted by, the emerging trends that we're seeing. So this graph right here is a percentage of players playing mostly online. So this was the 2024 statistic. You'll obviously see fantasy sports is very much at the top, following with esports and traditional sports. We'll go into past year problematic gambling behavior among online gamblers. So we'll see here the gray represents the online gamblers' problematic behaviors. So needed to gamble more for the same feeling of excitement, 6% as opposed to that 1% for offline gambling only. Relied on others to pay debts or bills, lied to hide gambling, and felt restless or irritable when trying to quit or cut down. So you'll see some of those things that I've pointed out to you could be very much similar to how someone feels when they are abstaining from using alcohol or other drugs. That restlessness, that irritability, lying about those things that they're doing. And wanted to get into also the sports betting frequency. I like this graph because, again, it shows the history of the Engaged survey between 2018 and 2024. So you'll see here in 2024, it kind of goes up a little bit. So once or twice a year, that blue is that 31% you'll see at the top. And obviously, with the changes of what we're seeing in real time, it really just depends on the frequency. But sports betting continues to be at the top of the list, especially for college students. So here we have weekly sports betting by age in 2024. So that 18 to 24 bracket, those college students, that's the highest number that we saw within this survey. And then just as a note, 65 and older not shown due to small sample size. So within the sample size that was used for the Engaged survey, this is what we saw as far as where we saw the trends. And then past year problematic gambling activity, sports bettors versus non-sports bettors. So again, you see that usually 5-to-1 or 7-to-1 ratio, needed to gamble more for same feeling of excitement, relied on others to pay debts or bills, again, lied to hide gambling, and felt restless or irritable when trying to quit or cut down. All right, so I'll go ahead and give a brief pause and give everyone an opportunity to enter in the chat. Why do college athletes and college students gamble? All right, social interaction, fear of missing out, form of socialization, easy way to make money, quick cash, social benefit, to pay for school, financial challenges. They do not have a lot of money and it's an opportunity to make easy money. Boredom. It's exciting. And social media influence. I want to take a moment just to talk about social media influence because when you think about social media, it didn't come, until the 2010s. So a lot of that obviously is impacting that frequency of gambling, making it fun, making it easily accessible, especially with advertising. That becomes first and foremost what people are seeing on their phones and what they're seeing when they watch sports. So definitely a higher risk for seeing those things and also participating in gambling, due to those reasons. So why do athletes gamble and develop problems? So I picked up this clip from a relatively recent article back from last fall when the NCAA approves professional sports betting for college athletes and staff. And just tying it into how extremely competitive it is, belief in their own skill, higher rates of risk-taking behavior among athletes, injuries and separation from team, loss of support. So a lot of times when student athletes are injured, they probably get that fear of missing out on the actual sport and want to participate in another way. But also that boredom feeling, they're not participating in the sport, so they want to get involved in another way. And also anxiety, trauma, especially early childhood trauma, stress, and other behavioral health issues can increase the likelihood of athletes developing gambling problems. So with advocacy, a lot of what NCPG does is we try to partner with, sports institutions. And a lot of the time, especially with our new 1-800 My Reset number that was launched earlier this year, we're really trying to encourage and have these entities advocate for us. And I just wanted to take a minute and showcase one of our partners. Um, Advertisements through the PGA Tour since that is going on now. So let me make sure that this is sharing. All right. Logan, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Hopefully the video works.
Jenna, do we need to hear the audio as well? You may need to, when you click share, you may have to click the share audio button. Sorry.
Oh, hold on. Where's the share audio button?
So you may have to reshare. So when you go up to share screen,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the bottom corner, there's a little checkbox that says share audio.
Share sound. Perfect. Sorry about that, everybody. It's my first time sharing a video on here. Let's try it again.
Exhilarating to bet on our heroes' biggest moments. But if you find this activity is becoming more important than living those special life moments, it may be time to reach out. Sam, the responsible gaming caddy, here to remind you that 1-800-MY-RESET, a free and confidential helpline, is available 24/7, 365 days a year. For resources to help overcome a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-MY-RESET today.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen back. So it's just one of those examples that I really wanted to share with everyone regarding some of those partnerships that we do. We do love to see when this happens. Sure I'm sharing the right one. Perfect. All right, Logan, good?
Yes, looks great.
Awesome. All right. So wanted to throw in some resources on sports betting. So NCAA Don't Bet on It is one of those. Getting a refresh, including new online educational materials. There's also Epic Risk Management, speaker with lived experience. So it's nice to have someone that you can hear from that has been through it. I definitely just believe in the power of peers and the experience that they have lived and how that goes a long way, especially for someone who is experiencing those gambling harms. Collegegambling.org is just a compilation of research and resources specific for sports betting and college. NCPG and our 35 state affiliate chapters, we provide comprehensive education and integrate with campus resources and treatment referral. So for those of you coming in from across the nation, there is a state affiliate that you can connect with, and I'm sure they would be thrilled to partner with you. And also responsibleplayed.org, which is supported by NFL and other pro leagues, which offer some non-judgmental approaches to minimize risk for sports bettors. All right, so want to get into some of those campus responses for problem gambling. Wanted to start with the awareness piece. So wanted to provide some examples of how you can increase awareness around problem gambling on your college campus. So I've noticed, especially lately, with Problem Gambling Awareness Month, it is easy to kind of integrate awareness events with other nationally recognized events happening. So a lot of the time we've seen Problem Gambling Awareness Month collaborations happening on college campuses. I've seen some sessions during orientation or mental health week. So orientation is a great way to level set with the new incoming class. especially having maybe a focus group or a way for students to provide their thoughts on gambling. Other ideas could include partnering with business clubs, athletics, and residence halls. Back a long time ago, when I was in college, I did work a lot with residents, assistants, and directors, and a lot of the time they are really open and encourage programming, especially that will raise awareness on topics such as problem gambling. And then another idea could be targeting groups more exposed to betting culture, so sports fans. So again, you can get a lot of that integration and overlap with orientation week, maybe even before a practice session for a sports club, just being able to integrate as much or as little time as you can, especially for this group that I'm sure has their own ideas on problem gambling, but again, especially in the college culture, it helps to level set as well. So some actionable responses for problem gambling on campus. Uh, you could increase competition with intramural sports and esports tournaments without the gambling component. So sometimes food is a great motivator, as we all know. So anytime you're, tabling or going for competition, having, some of that type of reward or a chocolate is definitely helpful. But also positive competition as well, encouraging people to do their best and just getting really into the spirit of the sport that's going on. And it's also for relieving stress. So, a lot of college students, they double up on classes and they're inundated with so many other things. So making sure that there's a way for them to relieve stress, whether that be through fitness classes, having time to listen to music, mindfulness events, definitely important to prioritize that, especially at that age. And socializing. So game nights with non-gambling components like trivia, board games. Even, in my 30s, I have game nights every week with friends. It's just a great opportunity to come together, socialize, and have a good time. And also creative events too. I've seen, a lot of the painting groups come together and lead different things that are happening. So there's definitely a creative outlook to this socialization component as well. And then just a note, obviously, to avoid gambling themed activities and fundraisers, such as casino nights. I know it's definitely a draw, especially in the college space, but the more we see it, the more it becomes more normalized and could also pose some triggers for people that are really trying to avoid gambling. So just something to keep in mind. And then some resources. So just want to put in here ensuring students know where campus counseling services are. A lot of the time we do see that those resources are tied in with the counseling services, which is fabulous. And also that gambling addiction spaces are confidential and treatable, and that they won't face academic punishment for seeking help. I think it's really about that first hurdle that students need to overcome in order to be able to receive the resources and care that they need. And you can also, just as some ideas as well, adding a few questions for a gambling screening assessment to wellness check-ins or even during orientation as well. And include gambling and mental health campaigns alongside alcohol and other drugs. So just want to go back to the 1-800-MIND-RESET, since that is the National Problem Gambling Helpline. It is free, it is confidential, and it's accessible for anyone at any point experiencing gambling harms. So you could be 86 or you could be 18. And I would still say call the number because they do have warm transfers and they are able to help you in real time. So I'll leave this here as our last question before I go into any questions that need to be answered. But what's one thing you could implement on your campus? social media posts and awareness, gambling awareness events, game nights, including this specific topic with our peer programming, outreach and support, peer support groups. Yeah, that is huge. That's something I don't see on campuses too often, or maybe it's not advertised as it should be, but I think the peer component definitely is impactful. I've heard college students say before, it's hard to engage with a therapist that is, twice your age. So having someone that is more relatable definitely goes a long way. Screenings. We did educational tabling in the athletics building utilizing passive displays. That's awesome. Awareness events during big sports days such as homecoming or Super Bowl. That's lovely. And then also, it's March Madness season, so I'm sure it's really high with the advertising right now and the availability and accessibility to gamble. Encourage more healthy coping habits. Yep, absolutely. All right, perfect. Well, I will leave this up right now. I want to throw in a couple more references, especially I know someone had a question on conference. Just wanted to throw in some of those links. And then I'll also head over to any Q&A. Logan, should I just hop in? Or do you want to? Looks like there's just one, but you
Yeah,
can.
well, first I want to encourage folks to submit any questions that they may have for Jenna. Looks like we have some time to get through those, so we definitely want more questions to come in. We do the first one, Jenna. If you're comfortable answering, like, what would you recommend for a gambling screening questions on intake? So I'm thinking like counseling. So what would
Mhm.
you recommend, like people looking at certain screenings, certain tools, what's available?
That's a great question. We actually just did a webinar with some professionals who have helped to create some of these screeners. So, for example, the EAGS screener, I'm going to put that in the chat as well from our Problem Gambling Awareness Month session. But the EAGS is for emerging adult gambling screener. So it really, those questions are geared toward the young adult population.
Absolutely. Are there any others that you would recommend or point people towards?
Sure, yeah. Another one that I have seen used, especially on college campus, because it's so quick, and it might even be a little too quick, but at least it initiates the conversation, is the lie bet screen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me
Um,
go ahead and find that. So now we just put it in. Ah, here we go. I'm going to put the EAGS into the chat. And then the other one that I'm thinking of is the SOGS tool, the South Oaks Gambling Screener, which is a little bit longer, but again, it's another option, so I can put these in the chat. So live bet leagues. Oh, that's a good question. So Kyle asked, do you have any recommendations or trends for anything you've seen with gambling specifically in the Greek life community? That's a great call out. I would say regarding that, obviously, Greek life is a very social component of the college experience. So specifically with Greek life, integrating any of those resources and actionable steps that I mentioned at the last part of the slide. I think it's important to have leaders in the Greek life community call that out as well, because we all want to encourage wellness. And I think speaking to those leaders of the Greek community and showing the importance and significance of at least having an opportunity to talk through gambling harms is a great place to start.
Absolutely. And that speaking my language there, I know we talked about it briefly before, but for many of you that know me, my background is in fraternity sorority life. So we definitely know that the community is at higher risk. So definitely focusing on them is incredibly important. Jenna, I love this question because we know AI is everywhere. Have you seen how AI is kind of just impacting the space in general, to the gambling space, or even looking at sports bettings or prediction markets?
Absolutely. You know, AI is taught. And I feel like a lot of what has been fed could also be in line with those predictable tendencies if someone were to ask a question about, you know, the upcoming bracket and the tournament. So on the other side of things, though, I've noticed in the responsible gambling world, they're trying to utilize AI for, you know, positive play and being able to integrate more of those tools to help individuals. So it comes on both sides of things, and I think it's happening so quickly. Still trying to wrap my head around it, but yeah, it's definitely something that has been impacting the online gambling space.
I know that we can answer this question quickly. A question came in about particular apps that students are using in the like prediction markets
Mhm.
field. If you want to take that one.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the top two that I know of are Call Sheet and Polymarket. So, if at any point you want to just Google it and see, you know, what it entails, but those are the two top ones. I encourage anyone else in the audience to add as well, of specific prediction market apps that you've seen. But as far as, you know, what I've seen as far as the trends are going, Call Sheet is like a big one right now,
Yes,
or
and
Kalshi, however it's pronounced.
yeah, I think they like released about a month ago that it means like everything, I think
Mhm.
in Arabic. And so but yeah, though I think you hit the nail on the head. Those are the two big ones. However, I have been reading that the like big sports betting operators are trying to get into that space. Like
Mhm.
so because it is now we have to think of it, it is a market, and then so they're trying to get in and cash
Yep.
in some of those pieces.
Yeah. Billions of dollars are traded each day in that space, and it continues to grow exponentially. So, yeah, I have seen that as well with the sports betting scene trying to get involved.
Yeah, I like this question. It's at the bottom of the list if you want to get a preview. But what would you suggest for parents, or what resources I think could you tell campus professionals maybe that might be available for parents to help them if they have a student that is they're worried about their students kind of gambling or sports betting behaviors?
Mhm. I would actually encourage that person to go right to our website. So, ncpgambling.org, we have a lot of resources specifically to each of those groups. I would say, though, I'm not sure if this is just member inclusive for us or if it's for everybody, but we do have these Ask Me Anything um, uh, dialogues that happen once a month, and we bring in a professional. The one that I'm thinking of that's going to be coming up, and this happened right to this mother. She's going to be speaking, I believe, May 5th on this, but a parent's perspective from her as it relates to her college son's gambling addiction that started happening on campus. So I can go ahead and put that in the chat as well if people are interested in signing up for that AMA. But it's a great opportunity to learn from someone who has been firsthand experiencing that.
Just a quick reminder. I know you went over the kind of engage survey. So could you remind folks of where they could find that information. And as you're doing that, if you don't mind, did the Engage show, are you aware of any about kind of the differences between kind of men and women kind of
Mhm.
in the problem gambling sphere?
Yes. So you can access as well on our website. I might be frozen. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your video is frozen.
I see that.
Oh, we're
Okay.
back. We're back.
Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah. So it is right on our website. So if you go right to ncpgambling.org and go to the search bar and type in engage, it should bring you right to that. I believe members have full access to the full reports. There might be like the general summary of each of those. So might have to double check on that.
Okay. I'm gonna ask a question about the about recovery
Mhm.
communities, but have you heard or kind of seen anything is like how can existing recovery communities and like students in recovery how can they integrate kind of problem gambling and maybe students that are in recovery from problem gambling, how can they be kind of integrated into a student collegiate recovery community?
That's a great question. I think it goes back to maybe having some college campuses incorporate that peer component. Um, a lot of it, is obviously at that point that individual would be comfortable with saying, I'm in recovery from a gambling addiction. And of course, we can leverage the internet as well. There can be a lot of opportunity for online groups, especially within the college campus setting. I know it's much easier to have a conversation with someone and have it be more impactful in person. Um, but as far as the recovery communities, I'm thinking your college campus will definitely have Gamanon and GA. And I can put that in the chat as well. So GA is just like AA, but for gamblers. So Gamblers Anonymous. And then Gamanon is for the loved ones. So typically, I know that they have a website that keeps local meetings up to date. So my thought is it might be impactful to have someone come from a group like that to speak to the student body.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for all of these questions, everyone. Just trying to make sure we can get through these. We talked about athletes and fraternity and sorority organizations. Are there any other groups that you're aware of or that data has shown that are at higher risk from experiencing gambling harm?
I would say, I think I might have mentioned this in the presentation, but anyone who's involved in like esports, so esports clubs, I've noticed are on the rise, especially for individuals that want to partake in betting on someone that's winning like Overwatch or Fortnite or one of those things. So, needless to say, I think it's a topic that needs to be introduced to all of the student groups on campus. No one is left out from this. So anyone can be impacted by problem gambling. But as far as the groups on the rise, obviously athletes, people who are involved in Greek life, are on the higher risk score for that. Ooh, can I answer Nancy's question at the bottom?
Yes, please do.
Awesome. So I actually started in the problem gambling space in 2018. Since my background is in public health and wellness, I had noticed that this position was, becoming more um, front facing. So I saw that, the team leader for the Problem Gambling Resource Center in one of the regions in New York State was available, and I was like, I wonder what this entails. I was very interested in learning more about the scope of it, and even today, I'm learning every day about the changes within this. This group and everyone that works together. I think I also enjoy the fact that everyone's so open to wanting to talk about this, and help to, you know, encourage each other and partner together. So, um, it was just very much like I didn't realize that gambling was that much of a problem. I came from left field, not even thinking about it, to becoming fully involved in it and loving every step of the way. I've heard a lot of stories. I've spoken to a lot of subject matter experts that, really just hone in on different trends and the research that needs to happen. More research, I think, is, obviously important, and we're doing what we can with the funding that we have. So it's interesting. It keeps things interesting in my world, and I like to be a part of the solution for this.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's nice when we can think about how we have moved in the spaces to where we are. Want to ask a question about harm reduction. The one here from Callie. It's like, is harm reduction an appropriate kind of idea, or a kind of use it when it comes to this? And um, how would you kind of recommend, what if there are any resources about using kind of a harm reduction strategy when it comes to gambling prevention?
Absolutely. I've learned more, especially in this role, that responsible play is harm reduction. And a lot of the time, folks can feel that, I don't have a problem, but I can see how it can become a problem. And, what are the steps, what are the tools that I can use to be able to ensure that this doesn't become a problem, or scaling back in a different sense. I've spent way too much time in the past few months. How do I balance this better? So I fully agree with the harm reduction approach, but that also just depends on the individual's circumstance, as well as their willingness to want to address it. I say sometimes people who go cold turkey and completely abstain from the activity, that's if that works for them, I encourage that, but I'm always open to the discussion of the harm reduction approach as well. But as far as resources for harm reduction strategies, again, there we do have a lot of resources on our website for that. There is a responsible gambling section on our website. So anyone that wants to know more about positive play and responsible gambling, I would encourage you to check out those resources on that page. We do work a lot with like gambling vendors to ensure that their compliance training is being met, and that also includes making sure that there's annual trainings on the staff that work directly with consumers, and being able to recognize and refer to the appropriate resources.
Have you noticed any correlation between hosting like kind of gamified programs, so such as bingo or other, that kind of get into gambling behaviors, but maybe money's not being exchanged? And do they have any negative impacts on like promoting gambling behavior in the future?
Um, I have seen the correlation, especially because bingo is originally intended for gambling. But I have seen, these types of activities completely spun a different way. And I've been a part of those conversations and been a part of those activities in the past before. I can see how it can be kind of tiptoeing the line. My encouragement regarding that would be trying to find an alternative to bingo, because that could also trigger someone who may have had a problem with it previously. But also any sort of activity, I think just, avoiding stigmatizing language and also stigmatizing like imagery is another thing to keep in mind as well. So if you're thinking about, doing social media campaigns, being very thoughtful about how you visualize that on social media, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. We have two questions about hosting events on campus, and I kind of want to encapsulate them together. And so I think, how do we engage students in kind of around conversations? I think we could do kind of around prevention in general, But specifically, if we think problem gambling, like, but without bringing in some of those kind of activities that we talked about, but also how do we make this an engaging topic where students aren't just like, no, yeah, I'll pass, not my thing.
Mhm. Well, actually, I don't know if this person had registered for this, but uh, John Gare from the University of Nebraska had created a really interesting and awesome project for his campus for this. Um, and I think that, it's interesting from that perspective regarding, um, you know, just the opportunity there. Um, and I'm sorry, can you reframe the last part of that question that you had?
Yeah, I think it's how do we engage students kind of in this topic,
Mm.
and how do we avoid kind of those like typical behaviors like bingo, casino nights, raffles, and those things.
Yeah, it goes back to the incentives. I think I remember John saying that it's just when you encourage people to come and obviously have a safe place to provide their opinions and thoughts around a certain topic. I think it also helps when you encourage someone with pizza party or whatever. But also I think it goes as far as encouraging their own network of friends and neighbors, whatever, on college campus to come speak to this. It definitely doesn't all happen in a day, and it takes time and it takes dedication to be able to, reduce those barriers. But it really comes down to the more you talk about it, the more people are visually seeing it, the more they're going to be like, oh, well, then, this obviously isn't going away. It is a problem. And I've seen a lot of those types of visual campaigns happening on campus too.
Yeah, we had a good follow-up question to this, and it's like because most of the time in a tabling event, we
Mhm.
see campuses using things like spin the wheel or raffles.
Mhm.
Should we be concerned with those and potentially leading into or being seen as encouraging? There's the word, problem gambling. And should we look to other alternate activities? What are your thoughts there?
Yes, I definitely have seen that happen, and also want to err on the side of caution with how you offer those fun, enticing ways to come to the table. I see a lot of giveaways, but as far as utilizing maybe more trivia, I did a tabling event a few years ago, and obviously did not want to do a wheel or anything that could be triggering for some people or could be that gambling adjacent component, but having more questions aligned with maybe some statistics on college setting and gambling to really start to get them thinking. Like, so what do you think this is? What number do you think was impacted in the college setting in this year? Or just something that will spark initial topic discussion on it. So a lot of the time kids are blown away with, I can't believe it's that percentage. Why is that? And then that really kind of opens the doors. But yeah, I would say, trivia just also sparks those conversations. I like trivia in and of itself, so it's kind of a nice way to integrate it with the students.
Absolutely. Last question, because I think it's an extremely valuable one. Person mentioned that their campus have been able to get statements and just some resources on the syllabi around suicide and some resources there. Have you seen anything equivalent, or how would you recommend maybe putting in some information around gambling on places like that?
Absolutely. So obviously there is research that shows that students, well, people in general are at a higher risk for, attempting and completing suicide when, including gambling addiction in that as well. And I would say to the resources involved with that, again, you best form of a local resource is to contact your state affiliate. So anytime that they have information on that, they usually have tools that can be integrated in the college setting. I'm just going to go ahead and put in the list of all of our affiliates so you can see kind of who is where and their contact information for that. So it's so important, obviously to come together in partnership, but to be able to, utilize the correct resources for that, especially when it relates to suicide and gambling.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jenna. Unfortunately, we are at our time. But want to thank you so much for just sharing of your expertise and yourself, especially mentioning that you were a little tired. I think you found the energy, you found the juice you were looking for. So thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. A couple things I do want to mention from the center perspective. We do have our webinar coming up on April the 2nd and our on cannabis and peer education. We have our prediction markets water cooler chat happening April the 14th, and our learning collaborative on collegiate gambling happening April the 16th. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out. And if you are getting Ches, if you have paid for the extra Ches option for this, the evaluation will pop up automatically after this, but it will be also emailed tomorrow as well. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day and week, and take care.